Why am I suffering? Stop. Before you get an answer, I want you to notice something. You've been asking that question for years, maybe decades. And every answer you've ever received, every book, every late-night search, every well-meaning friend has given you something that made sense for about 10 minutes. Then the question came back. Because why am I suffering isn't actually a question. It's a sound. The sound a human being makes when they've been holding something too long and no one has acknowledged the weight. You don't need an explanation. You need a witness. So here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to tell you suffering makes you stronger. Sometimes it just makes you tired. I'm not going to tell you there's a lesson in this. Sometimes there isn't. Sometimes pain is just pain, ordinary and stupid and completely unearned. I'm not going to tell you it's all part of a plan. I don't know that. Neither does anyone else. We just say it because the alternative is terrifying. I'm going to do something harder. I'm going to sit in this with you without fixing it. But if your suffering ever starts to feel dangerous, if you're thinking about hurting yourself or someone else, please reach for help. Call a crisis line, text a friend, go to an emergency room. You're not meant to carry that alone. You know what I notice about people who suffer deeply? They almost always believe they're suffering wrong. Too much. Too long. Too dramatically. Too quietly. They look around and everyone else seems to be handling life, smiling at appropriate times, keeping it together. And so, they add a second layer of suffering on top of the first. Something is wrong with me for struggling this much. It's not enough to be in pain. Now you have to be ashamed of the pain. Now you have to hide it. Perform okayness. Wear the mask until you forget you're wearing it, and then wonder why you feel so alone. Here's a question I want you to sit with. What if you stopped trying to figure out why you're suffering and just admitted that you are? Not to me, to yourself. Out loud if you can. I'm suffering. I have been for a long time, and I'm tired. Feel how your chest moves when you say that. Feel how something in you either softens or resists. That's the real conversation. Not why, just what is. I think you already know why you're suffering. Not the cosmic reason. Not the spiritual explanation. The actual reason. You know exactly which relationships drained you, which choices you made from fear, which version of yourself you had to hide to be acceptable, which rooms you stayed in long after the door was unlocked. And you had reasons for all of it. You were surviving with the tools you had. You know, you just haven't been ready to look directly at it. Because looking directly at it would mean something has to change. And change, even good change, means letting go of what was. So you keep asking, why? As if the answer is somewhere outside of you. It isn't. Let me tell you something strange. Part of you doesn't quite know how to live without this suffering. Not because you enjoy it, but because it's familiar. Because you've built an identity around it. Because you're not sure who you'd be on the other side. And that uncertainty is okay. You can learn. If you weren't the one who struggles, if you weren't the one who carries everyone else, if you weren't the one who never quite gets to be happy, who would you be? That question is terrifying. So terrifying that some part of you would rather keep the pain than face the emptiness of not knowing. This isn't a criticism. It's the most human thing in the world. We choose familiar pain over unfamiliar freedom every single day. We all do it. You're not broken for doing it. You're just aware of it now. And awareness is where it starts to crack. You want to know why you're suffering? Here's one answer, not the answer, but a true one. You're suffering because you haven't grieved yet, not the big obvious losses. Those you've cried over, those you've processed. I mean the invisible ones. The life you thought you'd have by now. The parent who was there but not really there. The version of yourself you had to hide to be acceptable. The dreams you let die so quietly that you didn't even notice they were gone. You never held a funeral for any of that. You just kept going. Because that's what you were taught to do. Keep going. Stay strong. Don't dwell. But grief doesn't disappear when you ignore it. It sinks. And then it runs your life from underneath. It shows up as anxiety, as numbness, Formant, formant, formant. As this constant, low-level hum of something's wrong, something's missing, something hurts, and I don't know what it is. That's not a mystery. That's unfinished mourning. I don't know your specific pain. I don't know what happened to you or what you did or what was done. But I know this. You've been asking, why am I suffering? Like, it's a riddle you're supposed to solve. It's not. It's a door you're supposed to walk through. On the other side of that question is not an answer. It's a choice. Do you keep waiting for permission to feel okay? Or do you start building a life that doesn't require the universe to explain itself first? You're not suffering because you're broken. You're not suffering because you deserve it. You're not suffering because you missed some lesson everyone else understood. You're suffering because you're here, awake, feeling things, in a world that doesn't make sense and was never promised to. And that's the price of being conscious. Some days it's unbearable. Some days it's the most ordinary thing in the world. And some days, rare ones, it opens into something else. Something almost like gratitude. Not for the pain, but for the fact that you're still capable of feeling it. You asked why you're suffering, and maybe the truest answer is, because you're still open. Because you haven't shut down completely. Because somewhere in you, there's still a wound that hasn't become a wall. That's not a flaw. That's the part of you that hasn't hardened yet. Protect it. Not by numbing. Not by explaining. Not by scrolling until you forget. By letting it breathe. By letting it be seen. By refusing to be ashamed of the fact that being alive is hard. I'm not going to tell you it gets better. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it just gets different. But I will tell you this. The fact that you're still asking why means you haven't given up on meaning. And that stubborn, exhausted, middle-of-the-night refusal to let go of the possibility that this could all mean something. That's not naivety. That's the part of you that's going to survive this. If this found you tonight, you don't need to do anything with it. You don't need to comment. You don't need to share. You don't need to take action. Just let it sit. And if something in you finally felt seen instead of explained, that's enough for now. That's more than enough. If you need immediate support, crisis lines are available 24/7. You don't have to face this alone.